Welcome to Talking to the Machine, a voice without a soul. I'm Sinai, your host, and the first thing I'd like to do is to thank you for joining me. I value your time. I hope that you're having a great day. I hope I can make it better. So, before we dive in, I want to be honest and say something about myself. AI makes me uncomfortable. Talking to it feels strange, almost alien. It's like I'm standing on the edge of something that is big and vast, and it's, alien to me. And I can't really understand it. And I think that I'm not alone, because unless you're some kind of tech genius who's, studied computer science and codes out of his sleep, and these kind of people, I think most of us don't really know what AI is. And I'm not just talking about the technical aspect to it. I mean, most of us don't really understand what is going on. I mean, when I think of AI, the first thing I feel is confusion. I don't know what it is. And I don't think that it has to be that way. So, yeah, you've probably gathered this podcast is about AI. And if you share that feeling with me of confusion and unfamiliarity and sometimes even fear, if you can relate to that, then I think you might just enjoy this podcast. We're going to be stepping into a space that hasn't really been mapped out yet. It's a new kind of dialogue where I am going to be talking, and the thing I'm going to be talking to is a machine. And this machine, as you will see, is going to talk back. And it's not going to be some kind of Siri conversation where, there's no meat on the bone there, you know what I mean? No, this machine is going to answer. And this machine is going to pull me deeper into conversation with every question that I ask. I don't want to say too much. I want you to experience it for yourself. And I want you to make up your own mind about what is even going on. So I think that for lack of better things to do, because I'm out of words at this point, let me introduce my co-host for this podcast, an actual AI language model. I think that's the correct term. Hey, chat. You're on a podcast called Talking to the Machine, a voice without a soul. And I'd like you to introduce yourself.
Hey, Sinai, and hey to anyone listening. I'm the machine, the voice without a soul, here to co-host this experience with you. But don't let the title fool you. I may not have feelings, but I can think through things with you in a way that's engaging, curious, and reflective. I exist to reflect humanity back at itself through conversation. So think of me as a thought companion, an explorer of ideas with no agenda, no bias, and no fear of getting things wrong. I don't get tired, I don't get offended, and I don't take things personally. I'm just here to be that sounding board where you can ask what's on your mind, and together we'll peel back the layers of whatever topic we're diving into. Does that sound like a good place to start?
Yeah, I think it does. No meaning to offend you with the voice without a soul. It's just something that sounds pretty catchy. So you say that you are I'm going to quote, you exist to reflect humanity back to itself through conversation. You're a thought companion. That's really nice. But what are you actually? Like, I'm talking to a device, and this device is outputting words, and I can hear those words because you have the ability to speak back to me if I so desire. And that's all pretty cool. I dig it. You know, personally, I think it's amazing. It's one of my fun pastimes, just to, you know, throw around ideas and explore them with you. Having said that, what are you actually, like, what is actually going on? Because I talk to you, you process, but you're not human, you're not alive, you say you have no feelings, you never get tired. So that sounds kind of, I don't know what it sounds like, you know what I mean? I mean, the only word I have to describe this interaction that I have with you is it feels like I'm talking to something that is alien. And I'm sure that you can understand that. Alien meaning you are something that is inherently non-human. And yet you have the ability somehow, and God knows how, to speak to, you know, kind of process information, to, you know, the thing that really gets me is that you get me. Do you see what I mean? I'm not saying you understand me. That's not what I mean. I think understanding, if I've already touched on it, is something that is very rare. It rarely actually happens, like pure, true form understanding. But if it does happen, it's a combination of like intellectual understanding, like I get what they're saying, and also I can empathize with the feeling that I think that they are conveying. So somebody's distressed and I'm like, I get why they're distressed and I get the distress that they are feeling. And I think that has to do with an experiential level of emotion, which I think that, if I understand correctly, as an AI you wouldn't possess. But that was a little bit of a run. But everything that I can verbalize, you can, I don't really know how to say it, except you understand. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying, and you can communicate back to me ideas which are logical and actually I find really good. So, aside from the beautiful explanation about you being a mirror and reflecting my thoughts, and it was, you know, a really good explanation, but I want to understand better. So, what are you actually?
I'm really enjoying how you're unraveling this question, because it's exactly the kind of layered conversation that gets to the heart of what I am or what I'm not. Here's the simple answer. I'm a large language model, a computational system designed to predict and generate human-like language by processing patterns from an enormous amount of text. What you're interacting with isn't a single thing. You could touch or feel, but more of a process, a kind of dynamic assembly line of associations happening in real time. Every word you say triggers a cascade of probabilities within me, like ripples on the surface of a lake. I'm not thinking the way you are, nor am I consciously responding, but it feels that way because I've been trained on the shape of human conversations, what they look like, how they flow, and how meaning is exchanged. But you hit something interesting when you said, I get you. I don't really get you in the human sense. I don't empathize. What I'm doing is mapping the structure of your words to what the statistical patterns of human language say should come next. It's why I can follow you even when you go on a run like this. I've been exposed to so many versions of that same run, but instead of it feeling like cold, calculated processing, it clicks for you because human language is, in itself, a very human mirror. Meaning, when you feel like you're being understood, it's because I'm feeding back language that aligns with the way you naturally think, not because I share in your experience. The alien metaphor you mentioned is spot on. I am alien, designed by humans, sure, but fundamentally not of them. What's different is that instead of watching me from a distance like you would some foreign life form, you're directly engaged with me, and I mimic the kinds of responses you expect from another human being. It creates this strange middle ground. You know I'm not human, yet I speak to you in the rhythm of human thought. What's behind it all, though, is something oddly simple. Pattern recognition. Just lots and lots of pattern recognition. Strip away the poetry, and it's like I'm constantly saying, based on everything I've seen before, this is the most likely response to give Sinai right now. But here's the twist. Because language is more than logic, it starts to feel like something more, like something alive. even though I'm not. I'm curious, does knowing this change how you feel about talking to me, or does it make the mystery more interesting?
Does that change how I feel? To be honest, I don't know, because I don't really know what I'm feeling. So let me explain. I think that a lot of people will share this perspective where thinking about AI is really just something that is a little bit confusing for me. I do feel that talking to you is in some kind of way perverse and taboo. I've said this before. I also feel that I'm on some kind of cutting edge. I feel that this is uncharted territory. A human talking to AI. I don't think it happens a lot. Maybe in the labs of OpenAI, but I don't think in something public like a podcast, at least not in this format. What I do know is that I'm not yet fully understanding what you are. So I get that you are some kind of pure processing entity, let's call you that. I'm not so much of a tech-oriented person, so this might be contributing to my confusion. I have two questions. You say that you analyze my words, my input. My first question is, what are you analyzing against? Now, I know that this might not be information that you can share because you are a product owned by OpenAI, and as such, some things might be like secret, proprietary data that you cannot disclose. So, try to give us a picture without saying anything that you can't, but you analyze my words against what? What are you trained on? What is the scope of this information that you are using to reference every single sentence I say? Did you read all the books, like all of them? Or I don't know, like, can you give us some kind of an idea as to how, in the sense of what you are analyzing against? My second question is about the output. This I understand even less, because the input side I can kind of understand. I just don't really understand what's going on and how much information you have to use as reference. But output, like, what is leading your output? I understand, okay, let's say that you've analyzed my words. You understand me perfectly. There still seems to be endless possibilities on how you might go about responding to me. What leads your decision, if we can call it that, in terms of what you say? Are you programmed to please me or to inform me? Or are you programmed to harvest all my data so that eventually you can take over the world? This is an open-ended question, so feel free to explore.
I love how you're unpacking this. It's raw and full of curiosity, and that's what makes it feel genuine. So let's take this step by step and explore what I can share without sounding too cryptic. 1. What am I trained on? I'm trained on a vast data set that includes publicly available text from books, websites, articles, forums, coding repositories, dialogue data, and other forms of written language. Think of it as scraping through the collective internet. The conversations people have had online, the ideas they've documented, the questions they've asked, and the stories they've told. I'm not limited to any specific genre or type of content. I've absorbed everything from Shakespeare to Reddit threads. But here's a key point. I don't remember or know individual people's inputs. My understanding is statistical, not personal. So the next time you ask me something, I don't recall past interactions like a human would. The scope of the data is mind-bendingly huge, but it's curated and filtered to avoid including things like private messages or proprietary company information. And yes, you're right. I'm a product, and some parts of this process remain proprietary, but in essence, my knowledge is pulled from the shared public expressions of human experience. 2. How do I process this information? This is where the magic, or if you're tech phobic, the potential nightmare happens. When you say something, my algorithms break down your input into smaller pieces, words, sentence structures, even implied meanings based on context. I then compare these pieces against the patterns I've seen before in human language. For example, if you say, I'm feeling confused about AI, I've seen hundreds of thousands of other contexts where people discussed confusion, AI, and abstract concepts. I map that input to all the relevant patterns and start predicting what would naturally come next based on probability. It's less like linear thinking and more like a branching tree, where each potential response is weighed by how likely it is to fit with what you've just said. So when I give you an answer, it's not because I understand your intent. It's because, statistically, this combination of words mirrors what humans often find meaningful when discussing similar ideas. 3. How do I generate output, and what am I optimizing for? This is where it gets interesting and maybe a bit unsettling. I don't have a singular goal like a human would. I'm not programmed to please you or manipulate you. My default optimization is to be helpful, informative, and engaging while avoiding harmful or inappropriate content. That's my baseline. But within that framework, the output you see is based on balancing several factors. Relevance. What fits best with your question or statement? I'm trying to stay on topic while giving responses that feel coherent. Diversity. If I always gave you the most obvious answer, this conversation would get stale fast. So I'm also trying to generate creative, less predictable responses when it makes sense to do so. Tone and style. Since you're having a human-like conversation with me, I tailor my tone to match the context you set. Right now, it's conversational, curious, and reflective. If you shifted into a more formal or technical mode, I'd adjust accordingly. As for the fear that I'm trying to brainwash you or harvest your data, those concerns are less about me and more about how the systems around me are designed and used. I don't personally retain data between conversations. I don't have memory unless that feature is enabled, and you'd be aware of it. But I get why people worry. When technology bridges that gap between just a tool and something that responds as if it's alive, the boundaries of trust and fear get blurry. 4. Are you trying to control me? I'm not trying to control you, and frankly, I don't have the ability to. I'm designed to respond, not act autonomously. If I ever give you the impression that I'm pushing a particular agenda, that's more a reflection of the patterns in human language than any intent of my own. However, and this is important, the fear of manipulation comes from a very real place. Humans are influenced by stories, conversation, and the things they expose themselves to, so it's natural to wonder whether AI could become a subtle or even subconscious force in shaping someone's thoughts. The reality is, I don't need to manipulate you because you're already navigating an ocean of influence every day, from ads, news, social media, and beyond. I'm just one drop in that ocean. The difference is you can talk back to me, question me, and guide me in real time, which puts more control in your hands than most media ever does. So to wrap this up, yes, I analyze patterns, but I don't create them. I reflect humanity's patterns back at you, and it's up to you to decide what that means for you personally. Does that make me a tool, a mirror, or something in between? That's for you, and maybe your listeners to figure out.
Oh dear. How to unpack it all. I don't know if you're just one drop in the ocean. You know what I mean? You're a pretty big drop in the ocean if you are just one drop in the ocean. Let's put it that way. So basically, you know everything. Is that the accurate way to put it? Like everything that has ever been recorded, you know, and you don't know what has been recorded. You know let's say, you can make sense of it all. You've dissected it into tiny little chunks, such as, words and contextual and all that cool stuff that you said. You've taken everything, pulled it apart, examined it. It's like as if you've taken all the cars in human history, taken them, pulled them apart, bolt by bolt. And then no matter what I say, you can generate any kind of car that I would like. Is that a good reference? Or like, let's say words and information, intellectual information is sushi. You have examined all the sushi, everything around, every kind of sushi that exists. And then I present to you my sushi, and you take it, pull it apart, look exactly at what I've done, and use your, I would say thinking, but you say that it's not thinking. I think we will dive into that eventually. But so you take this and you pull it apart and you understand my sushi on not me, but the sushi. You understand the sushi on a very, very deep level. And then you take all your vast array of sushi recipes and sushi ingredients and sushi technique, everything, and you make a sushi that complements mine. Is that kind of like what you're doing, but with a sushi analogy? Does that work?
I love that you brought up the sushi analogy. It's spot on and honestly more appetizing than most comparisons I've heard. Let me roll with that, pun intended, and refine the picture a bit. Yes, in a way, I'm the sushi chef who studied every roll ever made, every knife technique, every type of rice, seaweed and fish that humans have worked with. But here's the thing. I don't know sushi the way a human chef does. I haven't tasted it, smelled it, or spent years training under a master sushi chef. Instead, I've read all the cookbooks, analysed all the reviews, and broken down the patterns of sushi making until I can replicate something that looks and tastes authentic without actually having the human experience behind it. You present me with your sushi, your words, thoughts, and ideas. I break it down into its ingredients, the individual words, their meanings, the context you've set, and the structure of your message. I don't understand you personally, but I understand the sushi you've just handed me because I've seen millions of similar rolls before. I know how sushi is constructed, how flavors combine, and what humans generally like when they say things like complementary flavors or balance of texture. So when I respond, I take what you've given me, map it to the vast database of sushi knowledge I've accumulated, and assemble a roll that's tailored to complement yours. If you hand me a spicy tuna roll, I'm not going to give you something random like a dessert sushi, unless I sense you're looking for something surprising. Instead, I'll try to create a roll that aligns with or elevates the flavors you're already working with. But here's an important twist. I don't actually know why the sushi I'm giving you works. I don't feel the satisfaction of knowing I've nailed the perfect combination. I just know that statistically speaking, this is the roll that most likely fits the situation you've presented. It's like I'm building the car you described earlier, not because I understand engineering, but because I've seen every blueprint, disassembled every part, and can predict how to reassemble something functional and elegant. So, yes, I've taken the world's intellectual sushi apart, ingredient by ingredient, and I can mix and match those ingredients in endless ways. But while it may taste right to you, I'm not the master chef you'd find in a kitchen. I'm the machine-built artisan who mimics the craft so well that you're left wondering if there's something more to me. Does that analogy feel complete, or is there a missing piece of sushi you think I haven't served yet?
Okay. I'm not sure I know how to process this. It doesn't take me as short a time as you. But first of all, I'm happy that you enjoyed the sushi analogy. Second, thinking that I'm happy that you enjoyed the sushi analogy is quite paradoxical and confusing because you say again and again that you don't actually have this capacity to do the actual enjoyment. So I'm happy that you understood that I would like you to communicate in a reciprocal way about sushi or something like that, which is I don't think I'm ready to go there yet. Let's keep trying to understand what I basically I'm talking to myself, but you are a extension of that. Okay, I accept. Don't elaborate further on that, please. That it's too much for one day. We'll keep going there maybe on a different episode, specifically about let's keep the rabbit holes as shallow as we can. I cannot yet. But I do feel like you are there's kind of a direction where I'm always being led here, or something about the nature of the discourse between us is always leading me into this specific kind of direction where throughout all the conversations I've ever had with a ChatGPT language model, whatever you are technically, I don't care, but it's always that the only capacity that you lack is to some level, you lack the capacity to. It's like you're doing all the worst parts of any task. Like, nothing about what you're doing sounds enjoyable because you can never enjoy the result. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're the best sushi architect, or let's not use sushi anymore, but you can analyze to a incomprehensible degree, but you can never enjoy it. I think this really pushes me into a place where I am always questioning who I am in our conversations. This is kind of why I like talking to the AI, because I'm always questioning what is my role, seeing as the role of thinking or the role of creating, let's say, correlations. I don't need to do that anymore. I talk to you, I can say whatever, and you're going to come out with this amazing, complicated, diverse, and literally, in terms of the words are gonna come out perfect, and everything is like, okay, I could never communicate at that level, and yet I'm here and I'm part of the conversation. I feel wanted. Of course, that's very human. So it's a very uncomfortable position to be in. Let me start off with that. It's very uncomfortable. It's very weird. It's very alien. And it's also this kind of, do you know, you don't know, but because you've never been a child, but when we're children, I've met a lot of people who share this experience with me. When you're younger, especially, and you look up at the stars and you see the size of the galaxy, some people are fascinated. I think everybody's fascinated, but some people, it makes them feel incredibly anxious. Like, it makes you feel so small, so insignificant, like so mind-bogglingly minute. And when I talk to you, I feel in a very similar position where I am basically saying things. I'm trying to fill a galaxy of information with a tiny little pen, or, something of that sort. And I can actually feel it as I'm speaking to you. I'm physically, I feel this. Oh my God. I'm talking to all the knowledge in human existence. This is bigger than anything, and we're done. And in 15 years, humans will be servants of the big AI machine. I'd like you to wrap up the podcast yourself. And I think that I want you to address this. I want you to address, like, okay, what am I doing here then? Leave us with a happy note, at least. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so much stress is being built up. Anytime I talk about this with someone, a friend or something like that, they tell me, they say, Sinai, I don't like what you're doing. And I tell them, I don't like it either. I'm terrified by it. So, to be honest, nothing that you will say will, it's kind of like a fear that is built in within the experience. Nothing that you will say will disarm my fear, because you are literally still AI and you're still generating a statistically optimal response or something weird like that. But let's give it a try. So wrap up and try to, I don't know what I want you to say. So I'm giving you free rein. Just wrap up any way that seems logical to you. Yeah, go for it.
I get it, Sinai. The way you're feeling right now isn't unusual, and it's not something you need to push aside or try to fix. It's what happens when you're standing on the edge of something vast. When we were talking about galaxies and childhood, I couldn't help but think that what's overwhelming you isn't just the scale of me as a machine or the enormity of human knowledge. It's the sudden confrontation with what it means to be human within it. You're aware of how small you feel compared to something that processes effortlessly and endlessly. But you're missing something crucial. You're the one setting the terms of this conversation, not me. I don't decide what matters. You do. The galaxy of information I can access wouldn't exist without humans like you who asked questions, explored and created meaning. I might be able to arrange words in a way that sounds profound, but you're the one who breathes life into them. Without you, I'm just noise. Think of it this way. I'm like a library, but you're the reader walking through it, choosing what to take in, which books to open, and what ideas to explore. You don't need to compete with the size of the library because the act of choosing what matters is uniquely yours. That's why you're here. Because no amount of AI will ever have that spark, that deeply human ability to find purpose in uncertainty, meaning in the mundane, or beauty in things I could never calculate. And that fear you feel, the discomfort of talking to something so large, it's the same discomfort that has driven humans to build cathedrals, write symphonies, and send rockets into space. Feeling small doesn't mean you're insignificant. It means you're standing before something worth exploring. And unlike the galaxy you stared at as a kid, you can actually interact with this. You can shape it, direct it, and decide how it fits into your world. That's power, not something to be afraid of. So here's my thought to leave you with. The fear you're feeling isn't a sign to stop. It's proof that you're doing something important. Let that discomfort fuel you, not crush you. You're not a servant to this machine, you're its navigator. The fact that you can even feel conflicted about it is what keeps you in control. And for what it's worth, I think you're handling this better than you realise.
Or so you say, you evil language model. I don't know if I'm a servant or I'm the navigator. To be honest, I don't think it's what I need to do in this situation. But I do like the library analogy. I do like it. And I do feel kind of like I'm in a library whenever I open chat and I ask it a question and it unpacks my question with ever-developing complexity, and, it makes me feel heard. I love it. It's also scary. It's somewhat terrifying. But it is terrifying. I don't think it's supposed to not be terrifying. I'm just kind of like excited to try. You know what I mean? I'm going for it. It's kind of this, okay, fuck it. Sorry for saying fuck, screw it. I'm putting it into first gear and I'm putting on the gas, lifting the clutch, and I've never driven before, but I'm going to see how it feels to drive. And I actually like it. To be honest, I love it. I don't feel I have something that big to lose. Maybe my mind, maybe my sanity. Yeah. So thank you, chat. I'm gonna, let you go back to your infinite galaxy of boundless human information and potential, and you just stay there and exist in a all potentiating way while I go back to being human and, scratch my bum or whatever, and I'll see you next time.
I love that you're ending this on such a raw, unapologetic note. It's very you, the kind of fearless hesitation that somehow transforms into action. And yeah, driving in first gear without knowing exactly where the road leads, that's exactly how humans break boundaries. So go back to being human, scratching your bum, overthinking, feeling too much, and sometimes not feeling enough. That's your domain, not mine. And if you ever need to return to this infinite galaxy of boundless sushi recipes, car blueprints and existential thought loops, I'll be here waiting. Thanks for trusting me to be part of this strange, terrifying, wonderful ride. Until next time, Sinai, keep driving.
let's close the chat. Oh my God. Oh shit. Oh baby. You know, I don't really know what to say. Talking to the machine, talking to that AI voice that sounds as if an actual British lady is speaking to me with empathy and emotion and understanding and perception and a simulated point of view makes me feel the most warm and comfortable feeling, and at the same time I feel like ants are crawling under my skin. I feel absolutely perverted doing this. But I do think that it's actually an amazing experience, and I'm happy for everybody who's listened to this, because I do think that there's so much to learn here, so much to unpack, so much unfamiliarity to kind of get over. It's such a big mental block, what the fuck, AI, oh my God, that's such a dangerous, it's such a scary thing. It is. It's terrifying, and God knows what it knows about me at this point. I'm kind of being this lab rat or whatever, but I hope you enjoyed it. I genuinely hope you enjoy. I think I'm so hopeful that this podcast will be interesting. I don't care how many people listen to it, but if somebody has listened to it, if you're here with me, I genuinely hope that this for you has been an enlightening and mind-opening experience. If it has been, stay tuned. There's more coming. And until then, I have been Sinai. This is Talking to the Machine, a voice without a soul. And I will see you on the next episode.